White House's resident racist cookie elf, Jeff Sessions, is coming for your weed. The Attorney General of the United States has rescinded the Cole Memo. The Cole Memo is a 2013 memorandum written by Deputy Attorney General James Cole. It establishes guidelines for how federal prosecutors are to deal with states with varying levels of marijuana legalization or decriminalization, and it establishes a hands-off approach except for under certain extreme circumstances, such as when marijuana is being distributed to minors or brought across state lines to states where it's illegal, or when gang or cartel activity and other harmful things like that are involved. So it's a very common sense policy that allows for businesses that are in compliance with their state laws to have some kind of security that the federal government isn't going to shut them down without warning. If you are a libertarian, you should be angry about this. If you are a small government Republican, you should be angry about this. Even if you don't support marijuana legalization, you should be angry about this. There are so many implications to this decision. First, we have to acknowledge the fact that Donald Trump repeatedly on the campaign trail in 2016 stated that he believed marijuana legalization was a states' rights issue. We'll see if he turns on Jeff Sessions and undermines him when the inevitable backlash comes, because Donald Trump isn't particularly loyal. At the same time, Donald Trump isn't particularly loyal, so I don't really anticipate him sticking to his guns if he thinks it's less viable politically, but we'll see. But more importantly, this is literally Jeff Sessions undermining the will of voters because of his personal opinion about marijuana. He has repeatedly stated things on the record that are factually incorrect about marijuana. He's said biased things like good people don't use marijuana. Marijuana is as bad as heroin, and other things like that that completely exaggerate the harms of marijuana usage. And he cites a lot of things that have been completely debunked. He implies it's a gateway drug. It's ridiculous. The important thing to remember is most states that have legalized marijuana have done so through ballot initiatives, which means that voters directly expressed their opinion on this matter and decided that they wanted their states to legalize marijuana. This means Jeff Sessions is directly undermining the personal will of the voters in the states because he thinks that the federal government should have wider reach in this area. To call him a Republican at this point is absurd. This is the epitome of big government interference in a states' rights matter, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Additionally, 64% of people nationwide are pro-legalization, according to Gallup. I will add the caveat that in the survey they did in 2017 that established this, they did use varying definitions that people could choose from, including just making it medical, just decriminalizing, up to full recreational legalization. But the bulk of people do not favor criminalization, and that's the important takeaway here. Jeff Sessions is advocating for something that is not popular for voters, something that goes against the Republican principles of states' rights. It's utterly hypocritical, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But let's talk about some of the practical implications of this, because many states now have some level of legalized marijuana. I believe around 29 states have it legalized medically, and I think 8 or 9 states have it fully legalized recreationally. In these states, there are thriving marijuana industries. In medical states, there are dispensaries that have dedicated staff that employs thousands of people. In recreational states, there are bud tenders, there are farmers, there are growers, and the marijuana industry overall right now employs between 165,000 and 230,000 people. When you compare that to, I don't know, the coal industry, which only employs around 76,000 people, you can see that threatening this industry is a massive threat to American job growth, This is an industry that is projected to grow to $17 billion annually by 2021, and that's not even considering if it were nationally legalized. That's just with it as it is. But there are more benefits to states that have legalized marijuana. Because gas prices are so low, many states have found that their gas tax revenue has been falling precipitously. Marijuana taxes have been a huge boon to states where it's legalized. They've done an enormous amount to shore up those budget shortfalls. And in most states, they brought in more than 3 times the amount that alcohol tax did. In 2017, Colorado got $119 million in tax revenue from recreational marijuana. They put $16 million of that towards low-income housing. In Washington State, we got $233 million in tax revenue, and again, it was more than 3 times what we got in our alcohol revenue in the same year. This is a huge boon to states where changing times and changing industries alter the budget landscapes. This is a new and growing and thriving industry that has massive potential to improve the American economy, to provide jobs, and that's not even talking about all of the medical benefits that medical patients get from marijuana legalization. The fact that Jeff Sessions is willing to undermine all of this because of his personal grudge with marijuana is ridiculous. This is absurd. This is a policy with very little benefits. Let's also talk about how this actually worsens black markets and increases the profits that cartels get. Because since marijuana legalization, cartels in Mexico saw their marijuana profits more than halved. In 2009, they got $3.8 million in revenue from illegal marijuana exports. In 2017, that number was down to $1.6 million in revenue. It's to the point where the DEA even acknowledges that they have completely decreased seizures at the borders, and they've actually found that people are smuggling American marijuana into Mexico because the growers in Mexico can't compete in terms of quality. So overall, what you see is that legalizing marijuana is beneficial to consumers. It's beneficial to people who want jobs. It's beneficial to states that want to run social programs and services for their constituents, and it's harmful to black markets, gangs, and drug cartels. The fact that we continue to exist in an age of prohibition is ridiculous. The harm that we get from this is absurd. And I haven't even begun to talk about the racially disparate enforcement of marijuana laws, which has resulted in disproportionate incarceration of people of color for non-violent drug offenses. This is a source of theft of rights and freedom for people for what is essentially a completely harmless action. I am a big fan of governing on the harm principle. I think if you commit a violent crime, or if you hurt someone, or if you harm another person, you absolutely deserve to go to jail. But if you're doing drugs, if the only person you're harming is yourself, it makes absolutely no sense to throw you in jail. This is an unbelievable miscarriage of justice. It's an obvious means of exploiting people and of exploiting free prison labor, which companies like Victoria's Secret and Whole Foods profit off of. Look it up. You know, this is a policy that is antithetical to benefiting the American people in any way. There is no tangible benefit that you will get from this policy. This is just another death rattle of the failing war on drugs, and it's just unacceptable. Call your legislators, make sure that they know that you are pro-legalization, that you support states' rights, and that you do not agree with the government using its federal prosecuting power to undermine flourishing businesses that are helping states succeed where the federal government won't. I know this is one of my rantier rants, but I'm very passionate about this subject, and I just found this announcement, which I've honestly been anticipating for quite some time, to be so so ridiculous. This is just another example of a bad, poorly thought out policy that is not in the interest of the American people, and this is everything that the Trump administration stands for. That's all I have for you on this. Agree, disagree, let me know in the comments down below. That's everything I have for you though. See you next time, Wiedersehen.